Once, in a quiet corner of the governor's mansion, a forgotten room lay behind a heavy wooden door. It had been sealed for decades, the dust collecting on its doorknob as if guarding the secrets within. The mansion's staff spoke in hushed tones about the last resident of that room, a former governor, who vanished without a trace one stormy night. Legend has it that he was obsessed with the idea of immortality, poring over ancient texts and conducting strange rituals. On the night he disappeared, a violent thunderstorm rattled the windows, and a low, eerie chant echoed through the halls. The next morning, his room was found in disarray, but he was nowhere to be found. After his disappearance, strange occurrences began. Staff reported whispers late at night, shadows flitting past doorways, and cold spots in the air. Some claimed they could see a figure, dressed in old-fashioned clothing, wandering the gardens at dusk, peering up at the mansion with a forlorn expression. One fateful evening, a new governor, unaware of the mansion's history, decided to host a grand gala. As the guests mingled, the lights flickered ominously, and the air grew thick with an unshakable tension. Suddenly, the heavy door to the forgotten room creaked open, revealing a swirling mist that enveloped the gathering. The guests gasped as a figure emerged, a gaunt man with hollow eyes, the last governor, returned from the shadows of time. He pointed a long, bony finger toward the crowd, his mouth moving silently as if trying to warn them. Then, with a deafening crack of thunder, the mist swallowed him whole, leaving only a chilling silence in its wake. Since that night, the mansion has remained a place of unease. Guests feel a watchful presence, and on stormy nights, some swear they can hear faint chanting emanating from the depths of the forgotten room, a reminder of the secrets that still linger within its walls. As time went on, the new governor, haunted by the night's events, found it impossible to shake the feeling that the mansion was watching him. Each storm brought a fresh wave of anxiety, and he began to notice strange phenomena. A book on the shelf would shift position, cold drafts would sweep through the hallways, and the flickering lights seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Determined to uncover the truth, he sought out the mansion's oldest caretaker, an elderly woman who had worked there for decades. She was said to know all the mansion's stories and secrets. Over a cup of tea in the dimly lit kitchen, she recounted the legend of the missing governor, her voice trembling slightly. "He was a brilliant man," she said, her eyes clouded with memory, "but he grew obsessed with life beyond death. They say he found a way to open a door to another realm, a place where time stood still. But he was never meant to return." Intrigued, the governor pressed her for more details. "What did he seek?" he asked. "The truth," she replied, looking deep into her teacup. "Or perhaps just a chance to escape the burdens of this world." That night, unable to sleep, the governor wandered through the mansion, drawn inexplicably toward the forgotten room. He stood before the door, heart pounding, the air thick with anticipation. Mustering his courage, he turned the knob. To his astonishment, it creaked open easily, as if it had been waiting for him. Inside, the room was cloaked in darkness, the only light coming from a flickering candle on a dusty table. Scattered across the floor were remnants of old rituals, faded symbols drawn in chalk, half-burned candles, and tattered pages filled with frantic scribblings. The air smelled of damp earth and something else, something almost sweet. As he stepped further in, he felt an overwhelming sense of being watched. The shadows in the corners seemed to shift, and the whispers he had dismissed as mere imagination now filled his ears. They were calling to him, beckoning him closer to the table. Among the chaos, one page caught his eye. It was a diagram of the mansion, marked with strange symbols and a prominent X on a spot in the garden. He felt an inexplicable pull to that place, as if the very ground beneath him was alive. With renewed determination, he decided to investigate the garden at dawn. But as he turned to leave the room, a sudden chill enveloped him. The whispers grew louder, now distinct and urgent, filling his mind with visions of the past, the governor's frantic experiments, the shadows of long-forgotten figures, and the dread of a door once opened. He hesitated, feeling a surge of fear, but a voice inside urged him on. What if he could uncover the truth? What if he could put the restless spirit to rest? He took a deep breath and stepped back into the hallway, determined to face whatever lay ahead. As dawn broke, he made his way to the garden, the morning light casting long shadows. There, marked by an ancient oak tree, he began to dig, uncovering the truth hidden beneath layers of time. But as the soil turned, the whispers grew more frantic, the air thickening with tension. Just as he uncovered a small, ornate box, a low rumble echoed through the ground. The air crackled with energy, and he felt a presence behind him, cold and powerful. He turned slowly, heart racing, to find himself face to face with the figure of the last governor, eyes wide and desperate. "Stop," the figure whispered, his voice barely audible above the rising wind. "You don't understand what you're about to unleash." The governor's hand hovered over the box, trembling. He could feel the weight of the past bearing down on him, the line between worlds beginning to blur. "What do you mean?" he managed to ask, voice shaking. The figure's gaze was intense, filled with a mix of warning and sorrow. "This box contains the key to a door you can never unclose. It's a choice yours to make." As the winds howled around him, the governor faced an unimaginable decision. What secrets lay within that box, and what would happen if he dared to open it? Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. The governor's heart raced as he stood before the figure of the last governor, the tension in the air palpable. The swirling winds carried whispers, as if the very mansion was alive, holding its breath in anticipation of what would come next. "What's inside the box?" the governor asked, his voice barely a whisper, laced with fear and curiosity. The apparition took a step closer, the air around him crackling with energy. "Knowledge," he replied, his voice a haunting echo. "And power. But it comes at a cost that could trap you in this realm, like me." Conflicted, the governor glanced at the ornate box, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly glow. It felt as if it pulsed with energy, beckoning him closer, promising answers to questions he hadn't yet fully formed. But the weight of the last governor's warning hung heavily in the air. "Why did you seek this power?" the governor pressed, desperation creeping into his voice. "What drove you to this madness?" The figure's expression softened, a flicker of sadness crossing his gaunt features. "I sought to escape the inevitable, to conquer time and death. But instead, I bound myself to this place, unable to move on. I became a part of its shadows, trapped in a cycle I cannot break." As the winds intensified, the governor's resolve began to falter. Memories of his own life flashed before him, his ambitions, the weight of leadership, and the growing pressures that often felt suffocating. Could he really be tempted by such power? "What if I don't want to be like you?" he asked, his voice shaking. "What if I want to free you?" The last governor's expression turned grave. "To free me, you must be willing to sacrifice something dear. The choice is yours alone. But know this. Every door has a price." The ground beneath them trembled again, and the whispers rose to a crescendo, wrapping around the governor like a shroud. He could feel the very fabric of reality shifting, the garden around him warping as if caught between worlds. With shaking hands, he reached for the box, feeling its warmth spread through him. The moment his fingers brushed its surface, visions flooded his mind, flashes of ancient rituals, dark corridors, and glimpses of other realms. He saw himself standing in power, a ruler of shadows, commanding forces beyond comprehension. But alongside that power was an overwhelming darkness, an insatiable hunger that threatened to consume him. "I can't," he gasped, pulling his hand back. "I won't let it take me." The figure's eyes darkened with understanding, but also with a hint of desperation. "Then you must close the door I opened. You must make the choice to abandon the power and seal the knowledge away." As the winds howled around them, the governor felt the weight of the mansion pressing down on him, as if the very walls were urging him to take that final step. He looked up at the apparition, seeking guidance in those hollow eyes. "What must I do?" he asked, voice steadying as determination washed over him. "You must bury the box deep within the earth, beneath the oak tree. With it, bury your own desire for power. Only then can you sever the ties that bind us both to this place." The governor nodded, feeling the gravity of his decision settle in. With newfound resolve, he grasped the box tightly, its surface warm and pulsing against his palm. He turned and began to dig once more, the earth yielding to his efforts, each scoop echoing with the weight of his choice. As he worked, the whispers transformed into a haunting melody, a dirge for the past. He could sense the presence of countless souls, trapped in the mansion's depths, their stories woven into the very fabric of its walls. Finally, he reached a depth he felt was right, and with a deep breath, he placed the box in the hole. The moment it touched the earth, a shockwave surged through the ground, and the whispers turned to cries, pleading for release. The governor paused, a chill running down his spine. "I'm sorry," he murmured, the weight of their pain heavy on his heart. "But I must do this." As he began to cover the box with soil, the figure of the last governor stood silently, watching. The shadows around him flickered, growing dimmer with each handful of earth that fell. The wind calmed, the chaos giving way to an eerie stillness. But just as he finished burying the box, a sudden gust of wind howled through the garden, swirling around him like a tempest. The ground shook violently, and he stumbled, gripping the edge of the freshly turned soil. The figure reached out, desperation etched on his face. "Don't stop. It's not just the box you must bury, it's the darkness that follows." With that, the governor felt the last vestiges of power trying to claw back at him, whispering temptations he had fought so hard to resist. He fell to his knees, trembling, as shadows crept closer, eager to reclaim what was buried. "Let it go," the apparition cried, his voice rising above the chaos. Summoning every ounce of strength, the governor pushed aside his fears and insecurities. "I choose freedom," he shouted, echoing through the garden. He began to cover the box with more urgency, each handful a testament to his resolve. The shadows hissed, swirling around him, trying to take hold. But as he filled the last of the hole, a blinding light erupted from the earth, illuminating the garden in a brilliant glow. The winds howled, and the figure began to fade, a look of relief washing over his face. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice now soft and distant. "You've set us free." With a final roar, the shadows retreated, the light swallowing them whole. The ground settled, and the garden fell into an unnatural silence, the weight of the past finally lifting. As the governor stood, panting and disoriented, he felt a profound sense of change in the air. He had faced the darkness and emerged, but at what cost? Looking back at the spot where the box lay buried, he knew he had made the right choice, yet the echo of the whispers lingered in his mind. Was it truly over? And what would become of the mansion, now free of its dark secret? He felt a chill run down his spine, a sense that perhaps some doors could never be completely closed, and that the mansion's shadows still held stories waiting to be told. With a heavy heart, he turned to leave the garden, unsure of what lay ahead. But he knew one thing for certain: the mansion would always be a part of him, and its mysteries, while buried, would never be forgotten. As the governor made his way back to the mansion, the air felt different, lighter, yet tinged with an undercurrent of something unresolved. Each step echoed through the quiet halls, where sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the beams. He could still feel the lingering presence of the last governor, as if his spirit remained tied to the mansion, watching, waiting. Days turned into weeks, and the governor tried to shake off the unease that clung to him. He poured himself into his work, focusing on initiatives to better the community. But there were moments when he felt a pull back toward the garden, as if it were a magnet drawing him into its depths. One evening, unable to resist the urge any longer, he returned to the garden at twilight. The sky was painted in hues of orange and purple, and as he stepped through the wrought iron gate, he felt a familiar chill creep along his spine. It was a haunting reminder of the choice he had made and the shadows he had tried to banish. As he approached the spot where he had buried the box, he noticed something strange, a slight disturbance in the earth, as if the ground were shifting. He knelt down, running his fingers over the soil, a sense of dread washing over him. Had the darkness found a way to seep back through? Just then, a soft rustling filled the air, and he turned to see a figure emerging from the trees, a woman, dressed in a flowing gown that seemed to shimmer in the fading light. Her features were ethereal, almost glowing, but her eyes held a deep sorrow. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady despite the knot of fear in his stomach. "I am Clara," she replied, her voice melodic yet heavy with emotion. "I was one of the last governor's closest advisors. I stayed behind when he vanished, bound by my loyalty to him." She stepped closer, her presence both calming and unsettling. "You've done something remarkable by burying the box, but it has not ended the cycle. Shadows linger still." The governor frowned, confusion clouding his mind. "I thought I sealed the darkness away." "What do you mean?" Clara's gaze turned somber as she gestured toward the garden. "While you buried the source of his obsession, you cannot bury the memories of those who were lost, the souls trapped by the very rituals he performed. They still roam these grounds, seeking release." His heart raced as he absorbed her words. "How can I help them?" "There is another ritual, one that can bring peace to their spirits and finally sever the ties binding them to this world," she explained. "But it requires great courage and a willingness to face the past." The air thickened with tension as he considered her offer. Memories of the whispers and shadows flooded his mind, and he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. He couldn't allow the mansion to remain a prison for these souls. "What do I need to do?" he asked, determination firming in his voice. "Meet me at the edge of the forest at midnight," Clara instructed, her eyes glinting with a mixture of hope and warning. "Bring something personal, a token of your own. It will help bridge the gap between worlds." With that, she stepped back, her form beginning to blur and shimmer. "The journey will not be easy. Prepare yourself." As she vanished into the twilight, the governor felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. He returned to the mansion, his mind racing with possibilities. What token could he bring? Something that encapsulated his own fears, hopes, and the burdens he carried as a leader. As midnight approached, he rifled through his belongings, finally settling on a small locket that had belonged to his late mother. Inside was a photograph of her smiling face, a reminder of warmth and love amid the responsibilities that weighed him down. With the locket tucked securely in his pocket, he made his way to the edge of the forest, the moon casting an eerie glow through the trees. The shadows danced around him, and the air was charged with energy, as if the very forest was alive with anticipation. Clara was waiting for him, her figure illuminated by the moonlight. "You came," she said, a hint of relief in her voice. "I'm ready," he replied, the weight of the locket in his pocket grounding him. Together, they walked deeper into the woods, the sounds of the mansion fading behind them. Clara led him to a small clearing where ancient stones lay in a circle, covered in moss and intertwined with vines. "This is the place," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The ritual must be performed here, under the light of the full moon. But first, you must speak the names of those who were lost, those who still wander." Taking a deep breath, the governor stepped into the center of the circle, feeling the cool earth beneath his feet. He closed his eyes, envisioning the souls bound to the mansion, each face flickering in his mind, each story a thread woven into the fabric of the mansion's history. With Clara's gentle encouragement, he began to call out their names, each syllable heavy with emotion, each name a key to their release. As he spoke, he felt the air thrum with energy, the shadows around them swirling like a storm. Suddenly, a gust of wind rushed through the clearing, and the ground beneath him trembled. The faces of the lost souls began to emerge from the darkness, ethereal and shimmering. They looked at him with longing, their expressions a mix of hope and despair. As their presence filled the air, he clutched the locket tightly, his heart racing. "I'm here to help you," he declared, voice strong and clear. "You are not forgotten. You can find peace." Clara stepped forward, her voice rising above the wind. "Now focus on the locket. It holds your connection to love and loss. Use it to guide them home." With a determined nod, the governor raised the locket high, its surface catching the moonlight. He felt the warmth of his mother's love envelop him, filling him with courage and purpose. "Let go of your pain," he urged the spirits. "You don't have to linger in sorrow any longer. It's time to move on." As he spoke, the energy around them intensified, and the souls began to reach out toward the locket, drawn by its light. Their forms shimmered and flickered, the air thick with emotion. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices merging into one. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted from the locket, and the clearing filled with a radiant glow. The spirits converged around him, their faces transformed, smiles breaking through their sorrow. "Thank you," they echoed, their voices resonating like a harmonious chorus. "We are free." As the light enveloped him, he felt a surge of warmth wash over his body, the shadows dissipating into the night. The air grew still, and the clearing became silent, the presence of the souls lifting like a heavy fog. When the light faded, he found himself alone in the clearing, Clara gone. But the sense of peace lingered in the air. He looked around, heart swelling with relief, knowing he had helped release the souls that had haunted the mansion for so long. As he made his way back to the mansion, he felt a profound change within himself. The burdens of leadership, the weight of responsibility, they still existed, but they felt lighter now, as if a shadow had lifted from his heart. But as he approached the mansion, a lingering doubt crept in. Was it truly over? Would the mansion, now free of its dark past, allow him to forge a new future? Or had he merely opened another door, one that could lead to new mysteries and challenges yet to come? With a deep breath, he stepped inside, determined to face whatever lay ahead. The echoes of the past might still whisper through the halls, but he was ready to embrace the future, whatever it may hold. As the governor entered the mansion, the air felt different, lighter, almost serene. He took a moment to appreciate the silence that filled the once ominous halls, a stark contrast to the whispers and shadows that had plagued him for so long. The weight of the past had lifted, but he knew that the mansion held countless stories yet to be told. Days turned into weeks, and the governor transformed the mansion into a place of community and healing. He opened its doors to the public, hosting gatherings that celebrated the town's history and the resilience of its people. He shared the stories of those who had once been lost, ensuring they were remembered and honored. Occasionally, on stormy nights, he would stand by the windows and feel a gentle breeze sweep through, a reminder of the souls he had helped release. It was as if they were still watching over him, guiding him forward. In time, the mansion became a symbol of hope, a space where the community could gather to reflect, connect, and grow. The governor realized that while the past would always shape the present, it didn't have to dictate the future. With each passing day, he felt more grounded, more at peace. He had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the unknown adventures that lay ahead, determined to ensure that the mansion's legacy would be one of light, not shadow. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.